I have an Airbnb investing secret that I'm going to share with you. If I were to manage your Airbnb, then I could tell you exactly how much more money I could make with my strategies. And it's very simple. The reason why I'm making this video is because a friend asked me the other day about a deal that he's doing. How would I know to invest? A yes or no to that answer. Would I invest? Can I add value? That's it. I'm going to give you 3 examples in this video, which is going to tell you for your next deal, whether or not it's going to be a good or a bad investment. Okay, so I look at the deal and I think, what can I add to make more money? Now, of course, if you've been paying attention to my channel, you know that I look at Airbnb in 3 layers. The first is online optimization, the second is hospitality, represented in your reviews, and the third is pricing, the biggest point of leverage. You do them in that order. Let me start with the Belmonte Penthouse, which is the Airbnb that I talk about the most on this channel. How could I add value? So that owner was selling it. It was an existing Airbnb making about $42,000 per year. Now, I looked at that listing, I looked at the competition around, and here are the things in order of what I would do to improve that listing and then how much money I could make extra. I knew, certainly. Now, the first thing is online optimization. Okay, so that means the online presentation of the listing. When the guest is going on Airbnb before they book, I looked at it and I noticed a lot of improvement. And by the way, these are little things. Moving a photo around, clicking a button. I just clicked one button and I made so much more money. So I noticed that this listing, number 1, did not advertise hot tub. They did have a photo of a hot tub, but it was all the way in the back of the photos. Now, I know that guests, they're looking at the first 5 to 15 photos. If you have 35 photos in your listing and your hot tub is photo number 31 and you don't have a hot tub in your title, most guests aren't even gonna know you have a hot tub. Check mark. I can add value. Wow, so easy. I'm gonna move the hot tub, which I have, to one of the first 5 photos. I'm gonna highlight hot tub in my title and I'm gonna make more money with that change. Now, the other thing is they only had 4 guests on their Airbnb listing, were only 4. Now, it's normal on Airbnb to allow 2 guests per bed. There was 4 beds. I'm gonna change it from 4 to 8 guests, which is common on Airbnb. I've done that. However, I charge a little bit for the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th guest. Now, I have made a certain percentage more on this listing because of that simple change, that clicking of a button. Now, I also added weekly and monthly discounts, which this owner wasn't doing. They were basically only renting out their Airbnb on the weekends. Now, that's how I can add value to the online optimization. Now, number 2 is hospitality. Was this a good owner? Did they have a 4.95 or above? And the answer is yes. There was nothing really I could do better in terms of hospitality. They had great reviews. Okay, move on to the next one. Is there anything I can do to optimize their pricing? Now, this is the gold mine, okay? If you find an existing STR for sale, and you can do that, by the way, if you go on Zillow, just type the keyword Airbnb or furnished or STR, short-term rental. Those are existing Airbnbs. This host was using one's price the whole year. My eyes just lit up. Because I knew if they're not using a pricing strategy, then a lot of money on the table, a lot. So how can I add value? Okay, I'm gonna do an online optimization, move some photos around, change around some settings. I'm going to do my pricing strategy. Okay, I know this is gonna get me an extra 25 to 50% revenue. Let's move on to one that I did not invest in and why. Now, last year when I was looking to invest in a new Airbnb, somebody approached me with a very nice plug and play, which I love, Airbnb in Phoenix, Arizona. This listing, I knew I could turn on the day after I bought it and start making money. But there was a problem. And the problem was that this listing was like a 4.95. It had 100 reviews. It had years of operating. You know, the online listing looked fine. There wasn't anything I could do to improve it. It was making about $100,000 a year. It was priced at about $700,000, and I think I could have made maybe $10,000 extra. That doesn't excite me. I want a listing where I can double the revenue, which is going to be the third example. The place I bought instead of this, I'm doubling the revenue by just clicking buttons. This is not the same listing because It only has a 4.6 and 5 reviews. But anyways, this was the listing. This doesn't even have good photos. You don't want to, look, we've got 3. This is another optimization online. So if you optimize to 100% your online listing, that's going to get you up to 15% more revenue. I have another video where I go over every one of these optimizations and how much it represents to the bottom line. Now we have 3 photos here of the pool, 1, 2, 3 in the first 5. That's a big no-no. That takes 2 seconds to change. And then also we have private pool. Now I'm familiar with this market. All pools are private pretty much. You can kind of tell by that first photo, that's a private pool. Also, you would never highlight in the title what you have in the cover photo. That's unnecessary. People start with the cover photo, then they go to the text. Now, while I was making offers on these other properties, I got a message from someone, an owner in an existing building where I own, and he offered to sell me his unit. So I did my same process. I looked at the online listing, I looked at the competition around, I asked him for how much he was making, I looked at his calendar, I just clicked in, okay, is he using the same price all year round? In this case, he wasn't. I gave him a level 2 of 3. He was using somewhat dynamic pricing, but nowhere near optimized dynamic pricing. So something crazy happened. It was a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. I went in, I looked around, I go on the online listing, it's a 3-bedroom and 2-bath. That's huge. Whether or not you know it, just take my word for it. Every guest on Airbnb searching for 3-bed bathrooms, this listing would not come up even though they had 3 bathrooms. It's not uncommon for a guest who's searching for 3 bedrooms to also want 3 bathrooms. Anytime that happened, this listing wasn't coming up. I knew I would make another 12% on Airbnb just by changing the number of bathrooms from 2 to 3. I also, when I did my walkthrough, I noticed the owner had a giant laundry room, and then they also built a private closet. It was pretty useful. It's where the owner stored their clothes. It was useful for them. If I'm trying to optimize my money, my investment, the best thing I can do is add a bedroom. That's rarely the case, but in this specific instant, and actually I'm doing that now, I'm adding a bedroom. So I knocked out that fake closet, which gave me all of the space in the laundry room, which was a bunch. That 3rd bathroom was connected. And then I also moved out the wall from the master bedroom. This is side by side with the master bedroom. The master bedroom is huge. It doesn't need to be that big. So I'm pushing it back another maybe 2 feet. So the thing is, I'm paying about $10,000 for this renovation. I knew that in advance. I got quotes in advance. I am getting about $150 per night for 3 bedrooms. I anticipate that for 4 bedrooms, I'm going to get $200. Although I have a reservation currently for the end of this month at almost $300 per night. That means by adding another bedroom, I could get double the revenue. Now, the reason why that's a possibility is it's not I'm just guessing, is when you go on Airbnb, you can arbitrage by size of home. What I mean by that is I have a table. We talk about this in my program. I have a sheet where I've analyzed a lot of markets. So I go on Airbnb and I use some data tools and I look at each size Airbnb studio all the way up to 5 bedrooms. And I look at per category, per size, what is the average nightly rate and the average revenue. Now I multiply those together. What you're going to find more often than not is when you go up from 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 bedrooms, you're gonna see the amount of revenue double or, add 50%, something crazy like that. Now, as we get a larger home, we get a larger purchase price. That's true. What's not true is that as we go up 1 bedroom, the purchase price doesn't go up 50%. So in this market, I have identified that there is a plethora of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. But for some reason, that 4th bedroom, a lot of people don't have, they don't want, they don't add it. So as soon as you add that 4th bedroom, the demand is still high. The amount of incoming guests is still high, but the supply drops off. That's the reason why the occupancy and the nightly rate jump up 50%, sometimes even 100%. Now, I'm gonna link that video in the description here where I go over that example and I build these charts out for you from scratch so that you can do it on your own. It does require a subscription to all the rooms, but I have a discount for you that I'll put in the description. You only need to use these tools realistically when you're investing. So if you're not investing now, save this video for later. I'm gonna put up my investing playlist, which is all about my strategy and how I earn 2 to 4 times the amount of revenue with the same property. I always invest in existing Airbnbs and how I'm making 30+% on my ROIs. Now remember, your Airbnb isn't underperforming, it's only under optimized. Get in touch with me in the comments. I'll meet you there.